Hey, welcome to today's episode. I am super excited that I have the Fernando Loaiza joining me. We are going to be sharing with you how to manifest any goal you want for your network marketing business using a little known law. And Fernando, I wanted to just quickly say thanks for popping in. We have some amazing followers and listeners that love these kind of things. And I am excited you're here because this has made a huge difference in my business. And we might talk a little bit about how Fernando and I got hooked up. It's been years ago now, but he's one of my really great friends. And Fernando comes from Geelong, Australia. I wish I could say it like you.
Geelong. Beautiful Geelong, Australia.
I know, I want an Australian accent. I have Siri Australian accent on my phone. So whenever I'm talking to Siri, my kids are like, that's weird, Mom.
So you're already working on the manifestation of coming over. That's beautiful.
I know, right? I totally am. I'm going to make it over there soon. So yes, Fernando is from Geelong, Australia. He's got 3 beautiful children, 2 boys and a girl, and a beautiful wife, and that's what they call home is in Australia. And Fernando is a 2 comma coach in the network marketing industry. And so I am excited to have you share this with all of our listeners here on social media. So welcome.
Thanks, Brandy.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Always excited to share this amazing information to help network marketers. And as you know, like we've been friends for a few years now, and I'm passionate about the industry. I'm passionate about the people that are in the industry, and I'm passionate about helping them because once I discovered network marketing, it was like, it's an industry like no other, as you know. Nothing causes us to face ourselves in the mirror, I believe, more than network marketing. And if you're watching this now, I actually, because I'm on the camera here, I can't see the comments, but if that's you, just give us a yes, that's me, just so that we know that it resonates with you, because that was my experience. So I thought maybe as a starting point, we obviously want to talk a little bit about how to manifest any goal you want in your network marketing business, working with a little known law. It's actually a very big law, but it's a little known law because not many people know about it. People talk about so many laws, don't they, Brandy? They talk about the law of vibration. Yeah. Attraction, law of so many things, right? Law of gravity. There are 7 main laws, which we'll get into those in a little bit. But I thought maybe I might just share a little bit about my background, because not everybody, like we assume that everybody knows who we are. Mm-hmm. But I just thought for a bit of context, it might be good to just give some perspective on how I came across this information. So I want to take just a couple of minutes, but it all started for me in 2003. It's like a movie, isn't it? Way back.
Way back when, on a Tuesday, right?
Yeah, so those of you that know me and know us working together know that I'm a student of Bob Proctor. I'm a qualified consultant with Bob Proctor. He's been my mentor for many years, but how it all started was in 2003. I saw him in a live, not a live, like a webinar, like a training webinar, and it was in network marketing. And the thing that really woke me up was the understanding of the mind, how the mind works and the different parts of the mind. And it's like for the first time, things made sense for me. Like back then in 2003, I think I was earning about $30,000 a year, or $37,000 a year in my job. It was a sales job. And my father never earned more than 45. So for me, he was like, that's as good as it gets, because I had a paradigm, I had a program, I had an idea, I didn't know about unlimited potential. I didn't know who I was as an individual. I didn't know what I could do because no one had ever told me those ideas. And then as I started to learn this information, I started to discover that, wow, maybe I can be a 6-figure earner, and not necessarily as an entrepreneur, but just in life. And Bob Proctor always says that it's only less than half of a percent, I think, of people earn more than 100,000 a year. We think everybody's making a lot of money, but it's not true. And it's not because they can't, it's because of the programs that we have, which we're going to get into. But all of a sudden, it was like, wow, maybe I can. And so very quickly, new opportunities started to open up as they do, because my awareness had changed. My consciousness was different. And then I started to attract roles where I was earning twice as much. And now, not only was I earning more money, but I was doing it in roles where I was doing what I loved, which was now coaching and sharing this beautiful information. And so I became very good at coaching people through it, helping people transform results. I ended up working with the Yellow Pages, as you probably remember. And, that was the first time. In the first year I was Rising Star, I was able to manifest a 5-star trip to Paris, which I went with my wife, which was very exciting. It's always more exciting when you don't have to pay for things, right?
Absolutely. We like those free ones, right?
Yeah. But for me, it was way more than that. It was really the sense of achievement. And, if you're in network marketing, you want a company trip, then you know what that means, right? Because you know what it may have taken for you to get there. You may not know what happened, but you just know that you did it. And you might have just, grinded or whatever the expression is and hustled and did all that stuff. But for me, it was just using the ideas. And I actually found myself that all I ever was doing with clients was coaching them. And I was doing business on the back end. Anyway, so that translated into a management role. So that was a step up within just a couple of years. And then I was able to manifest another trip to Tahiti, which was a 4-star, all expenses paid 5-star trip to Tahiti with my wife again. That was beautiful. And that was a result of me now empowering other people. So everything was going great. But then in 2014, it all came to a halt when they decided that people don't want to read directories anymore. They want to go online. So I was actually made redundant. And for a lot of people, there's a reason why I'm sharing this. For a lot of people, that would have been devastating. It would have been like, wow, I lost my job. And, it sort of hit me at first. But when you understand that there's a higher power working with you and through you, when you have that awareness, you start to respond different to circumstances. And for me, it was like I was coaching people every day in my job. And it was like, universe saying to me, if you're not going to jump, then I'm going to push you. Right. And so I was pushed. And so I had this perspective of, yes, there's a little bit of trepidation because you don't know what's going to happen next. But that's what led me to working in this industry, network marketing, because I was invited because of my experiences with the Mind and Bob Proctor. I'd done some other personal development that this company was looking for. And I was hired as the first international coach in an attraction marketing community, which is where we met. And I served there for 5 years. And in those 5 years, all I did was help people understand their potential, working inside of those structures, and help them actually execute on what they were learning. Now, that was people from over 50 countries, 40 different network marketing companies. I think I ended up coaching well over 4,000 people. And I discovered one thing, Brandy. You know what that is?
No.
And I discovered that
Fernando, you didn't tell me the answer before we got on.
Well, here's the thing. Like everyone, when we look at people in network marketing, we think that we're all so different. Like I think we get paralyzed thinking about the possibility of prospecting someone internationally, having a team in another country, all that sort of stuff. We think that everyone's better than us to some degree. It's like, I can't do what they do, right? And I don't know, I can't remember. Ellen Nightingale talked about it because Bob Proctor was sharing it recently in one of his records. Bob Proctor to this day listens to the small records that he used to buy from Ellen Nightingale. He talks about, why is it that we always look at someone else and see what they do and say to ourselves, I can do what they do, right? And what we don't realize is that they're just a different expression of us, because we're all really just one being. We're all spiritual beings. We have intellect. We live in our physical body. We're all different expressions of that. And we're all the same. And so it doesn't matter who I spoke to. It didn't matter what country they were in. It actually didn't even matter how much money, how successful they were, right? They all had the same sort of challenges, right? And a lot of those challenges had to do with they wanted more. Like my question to you is, do you want more, right? And that's where you and I met, inside of that community, right? And of course, we became friends. We started doing things together, and and so that's how the story goes. But for me, having this experience of working with network marketers, seeing that the education that we're getting was phenomenal, as you know, right? You're still part of that community. You're thriving. You're doing amazingly well. Many people are doing really well, but some didn't. And then the question became, why is that? Why is it that everybody can have the same information, the same training, the same knowledge, but have such different results? And that's the thing that makes me wake up every day. That's the question that I wake up every day thinking about. How do I help you be better? Because I know that you're able to. I know that there's a reason why you're not executing on what you know how to execute. And would it be fair to say, if you're here and you're listening to this, and I don't know how many people are on, how many people are, about 30 people on. If you're listening to this, is it true for you that you already know, like if you put your hand on your heart, you know what you have to do. You're learning how to do it, but your results are not reflecting that. Is that true for you? I would love to know, because the more you get present to this, the bigger the impact and the bigger the breakthrough that you can have. The first key to success with understanding these laws is not knowing what to do, right? What do you think that might be, Brandy? Actually, I'm gonna put it in you. What do you think is the, and you know, this is not a pre-rehearsed conversation, right?
Yeah,
We're doing this as we always do, right? We're doing it on the fly.
Oh, he's putting me on the spot, guys. Here we go. Okay, so I think,
but just from your experience.
Yeah, from my experience, I feel like that there is, well, and I've learned this from you. So there's a knowing and doing gap. There's a gap between the knowing and the doing, and that's where the issue lies.
Yeah, so people know what they know, and they know what they do, and they know the results they produce. But what they don't have is that awareness. And so really what I was looking for there, and you nailed it, right? You said there's a knowing doing gap. So there's a gap, but the challenge is people don't know that there is a gap between knowing and doing. And then the next most important question is, how do you bridge the gap between what you know and what you do? Like if everybody was able to execute on what they know, would that change your results, do you think? I think it would, right? And so it's a matter of how then do you do that? And so awareness becomes the first part of the process, right? And then the thing is, right, we're producing results. So you're producing results in your business right now, and you may not like those results, right? So what happens is that your potential is infinite. My potential is infinite. We are spiritual beings. We have an intellect and we live in a physical body. We have unlimited potential. There are desires that are in your heart to do more, to be more, to have more. And unfortunately, because of beliefs that you have based on programs that have been given to you from parents, teachers from a very young age, those beliefs are holding us back, right? And so it's really about, number one, having the awareness that there is a gap and that there's a different way to manifest what I desire, what you desire. But the other thing is that you are not your results. Like, think about that for a moment. You are not your results. So when you look at your results, you may make a decision about yourself. So if you look at your results and they're not what you want them to be, you might think, well, you know, I'm a failure. I can't do this. It doesn't work for me. How come it works for Brandy? How come other people who seem like, you know, bozos? I was watching Eric. I was watching Eric Worre the other day, and he was sharing some part of his GoPro, and he was talking about how he used to watch people walk the stage, and they were like bozos, as he was, you know, he used the word similar to that. It's like, you know, I know more than they do. How come they're crossing the stage and I'm not? If I know how to do all this stuff, and there's exactly what happens. It's not about how much you know, because it's not the knowing that actually drives the results. It's the who you are. It's the program. It's the who you believe yourself to be. And so the moment that you can start to detach yourself from the results that you're producing and fall in love with the desire of what it is that drives you. Like, the thing that drives me every day is, how do I help you be better? I wake up to study every day. I'm always reading. Like, as you know, Brandy, I've got, you know, Neville Goddard here.
Yeah, right, I think now you read like a book every few days. I can't keep up with how much you read. It's awesome.
Yeah, like there's like about 5 books on my desk here right now. I'm always reading because I always want to know, I'm not so much know, but understand more about me, because the better I understand myself, the better I understand who? You, right? And yeah, and so this is a conversation, Brandy.
Yeah, I said you.
And so for you watching here, the more you understand you, and this is, again, going back to 2003, that's what fascinated me. It's like I was understanding my mind. I knew how things work. I knew how results were being produced in my life. And then if I knew how my current results were being produced, then I could alter that, right? Which is what I'm trying to do. And we aspire to do every day. But we have to start to look at what is it that you believe about the results that you produce? Because that's what's having you be stuck.
Well, and this
And
is where, and if you remember, this is where I was when we met. Do you remember? Do you remember how, like, I was like, Fernando, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, I'm doing all the things. I'm doing all the things. And like, I was getting nowhere. Like, I felt like I was just spinning in mud.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is where you got me.
I've loved seeing your transformation, because when we met, you were already doing well inside of this community. You had just started to do well. Actually, I think you were at the first 12 months almost of, where you are on your journey, and you've continued to grow from there. But as I speak with you now, as I hear you coach and talk with people and train people, it's amazing because your language is different. Like, you're not who you were back then. There's been a transformation, not a change, right? And this is the other critical part, not a change, but a transformation. Change is temporary.
Temporary, yeah.
Transformation is permanent, right? And all that happened was you fell with a bigger idea. You wanted more, to do more. And so just thinking about wanting to do more, wanting to have more, wanting to be more, and you could, gauge that in terms of financial results. The problem with people is that they feel guilty about that. It's like, well, is it okay to want more? Should I want more? But you know what? When you understand these laws, the thing that makes you want more, the thing that wants you increase and have abundance, is the same law. It's the same force that applies to when you put a seed on the ground. When you put a seed on the ground, what happens immediately?
It sprouts.
Well, before it sprouts, it starts to attract everything for the manifestation of that sprout.
Yeah, it's gotta get what it needs out of, yeah.
Yeah, there's a program, there's a nucleus inside of that seed. And only the things that are in harmony with the nucleus, with the vibration of the nucleus, is attracted. Everything else is repelled. And so it starts to draw from the earth everything that it needs for the manifestation, the little sprout that comes up. And every seed, as we know, has a different incubation period, right? So it's the same. So that same force that makes that seed, all you have to do is plant the seed in fertile soil and just maybe move it around a little bit, and automatically it starts to do that. It's this same force that has you want to do more. So if you have this hunger inside to succeed in your network marketing business, to have more cash flow, resources, financial, make impact, all the things that we know, it's okay, and you should be happy about that, because that means you're actually operating within the law, right? Not wanting that is actually working against the law, right? Because the law of life is for increase, right? It's for abundance. That's really, really important. So I thought what I thought we might do, I'm just looking at my notes because I want to cover everything. So I guess a question for you to ask yourself is, what was it that had you join your network marketing business? I want you to reflect about that. And if you want to, you can put it in the comments. That will be okay as well. Think about what it was. Now, for some of you, I know that immediately you'll say it's because of the money. I want more money. For some of you, it might be because you want more time. You want time with your family, you want time with your spouse, you want time to do the things that you want to do. For some of you, it might be about impact, you see. But as you start to think about all these, the common word between all of them is which word? Everyone wants more. More. So it's all about increase, and it's all about growth, right? So we have to start to detach ourselves from our current results so that we can begin to work with this law. Now, the law of consciousness, the promise of this little law, it is the law of consciousness. It's the law of creation, which I talk about in a webinar, which we'll talk about a little, later on as we go on. But in the Science of Getting Rich, Wallace D. Wattles. Now, the Science of Getting Rich, for those of you that don't know, is the book that we used to create The Secret, the movie, which sold I don't know how many hundreds of millions of copies around the world. It was a runaway hit, right? And Bob Proctor actually was one of the main people that was featured inside of that movie. Now, in the book from which the movie was made, that book was written before, it was about 1930, I think, 1920. It was a long, long time ago, which just goes to show there's nothing new. Like, this stuff has been around for a long time. And there are people that still don't understand it because we don't have the awareness. You haven't yet started to ask the questions. How can I do more? How can I be more? Once you start asking that question, then the answers come, because every question brings with it the answer, as we know. So one of the laws is the law of perpetual transmutation. What does that mean? That means that energy is forever moving into form. Energy is forever moving into form. Nothing stands still. right? Everything's always moving. You're moving, I'm moving, my table is moving. Literally, sometimes my phone shakes, right? Yeah, everything moves, right? But here's the thing, your goals also move. They're operating on frequencies. They vibrate at a certain rate. And when you learn how to tap into that vibration, how to vibrate at the same frequency as your goals, now you're in alignment. Now you're like that seed that's attracting everything for the unfoldment of it. But we have to understand the laws of how this works, because there's precise laws. And the thing I love about laws, if you know about science, is that laws are precise. And what makes it a law is that it operates in exactly the same way predictably every single time.
And that is awesome. That's totally awesome that the laws operate the same way, exactly the same every time, because that means that if you follow the law, you're going to get the same result.
Yeah, I mean, and it is that concept that allow, astronauts to go to the moon. The fact that they could rely on those laws, it's like what Proctor says, the laws of the universe are so precise, you can send a spaceship to the moon and time the landing with a precision of a fraction of a second. Like, they're going to know exactly when they're going to land, how they're going to land, and where they're going to touch down. Very, very precise. And it's a beautiful thing, because now all that's left for us to do is what?
Is plug in to the law.
Yeah.
That's
Understand the law and work with the law. Beautiful, right? So the law of perpetual transmutation says energy is forever moving into form. Now, one of the things I've done is I've committed the whole syllabus of the science of getting rich, and I actually write it out every day. And if there's one thing I would encourage you to think about, is get the book, which you can download for free from Gutenberg. It's a Gutenberg. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but there is a free platform where you can download the book, because it was pre-copyright. You can download it, or you can buy a copy of it. Doesn't matter. And there's a syllabus, and how it starts is there's a thinking stuff from which all things are made. That thinking stuff is our energy, which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. So there it is right there. This stuff is everywhere. And all we have to do is plug into it, and we have to just form the image of what we want. So let's do this exercise, and then we'll tap a little bit more into it, see if it makes sense. So there are 8 key areas, like I've identified for me anyway, and this part of it is not a science. This is just an exercise that I put together that just allows me to process, and I've helped people with. But I want to just try it here, see if it helps you. There are 8 areas of your life that you can look at. You can start with number 1, health, happiness, wealth, relationships. You can look at your career. You can look at your impact. You can look at your personal development, and then you can look at your spirituality, right? So do I need to say them again? Maybe I'll just go through them one more time.
Yeah,
so
one
health
more time.
is number 1, health, happiness, wealth, relationships, career, impact, personal development, and spirituality. Now, what I want you to do, if you want to participate in this little exercise, is I want you to, next to each one of those, I want you to give your score between 1 and 10. Just rank yourself between 1 and 10 in terms of how well you feel you are doing in that particular area of your life. So let's go for health.
Okay.
How would you gauge your health? Now, it's going to be different for everybody. Now, your, rating for yourself of health is going to be different to mine. And it's not just about, weight or anything like that. It's about how you feel. You might be slim, but you're always tired, right? So you can't say that you're a 10, right? So think about that. Or you might be a little bit overweight, but you're feeling amazing, and that's okay too. Then you want to give yourself a high number. So I want you to give yourself a score of 1 to 10 for each one of those, right? So just go a couple of seconds.
Okay.
And then the next thing I want you to do is I want you to go through the list and look at how many are between 6 to 8, and just put a cross next to those. 6 to 8, cross out all the 6 to 8, just put a slash across all those, 6 to 8. And then I want you to count how many you have between 1 and 5, and how many you have between 9 and 10. Okay. Because here's the thing. There's a concept in Australia, and companies are using this, and this is how I sort of come up with this concept. The net promoter score of an organization tells you how referable a company is, how well they do. And what happens is anything between a 6 and an 8 actually is considered a passive, has no impact on the overall perception of a company. Anything that's between a 1 and a 5 is considered a detractor, and anything that's a 9 or a 10 is considered a promoter. So if somebody ranks you as a 9 or 10, you're a promoter of the organization. If you're a 1 to 5, you're actually detracting people away. So you're the sort of person that goes to a barbecue and you're like, oh no, you don't want to do business with that company, whatever, detractor, right?
Okay.
But the one that's at the barbecue and is talking about how amazing the company is, that's a promoter, 9 or 10. So how this may be relevant to this exercise is that anything that's between a 6 and an 8, it really is a passive. What you want to look at is your 9s and your 10s. How many 9s? Now, your highest possible score here is going to be 80, right? Because you got 8 and you got 10, right?
Right.
As the most. So it'll be interesting for you to add your score. Add your score, right? And then I want you to think about in those 6 to 8, how many of those, if you move them, like I don't know how many 8s you might have, but if you've got any 8s, if you move them up 1 point, all of a sudden you're in the next range. And that's like a 10% growth, right? And so the point of that is that really what it means for you is that you don't have to do a lot to actually start to improve the overall performance of your results. Because what I've discovered too is that when you improve one small area of your life, it actually improves all the other areas of your life. And in fact, if you're going to set goals around these areas, because these are all areas we set goals around, don't we? We set goals for our health, we set goals for our happiness, we set goals for our relationships. And if you're going to set goals about those, then this is where you can start to get a sense of, okay, one goal. So if I was going to choose a goal in one of those areas, I would look at, you think about health, happiness, wealth, relationships. Let's say I'm the sort of person that if I know that if I improve my relationships, it just improves every other aspect of my life. I feel good about myself. I feel happier. I feel healthier, all that sort of stuff, right? So this is why moving just 1 point is going to get you this. So the question you want to ask yourself is, what is one thing that I can do that is going to help me move up 1 point? Right. And then you want to allow yourself to fall in love with that. And so this is where, consciousness comes in, the law of consciousness, because now you've got to form an image of the outcome that you want as a finished state, as a finished result. What does the ideal relationship look like for you? If it's about wealth, then, what is the number that you want to be earning that's going to improve everything else? You might decide that if you're earning more money, all of a sudden you can go to the gym. You can be at home, you can have more time for yourself, you can buy better food, you can be healthier, which is a bit of a lie, but because you can do that at any state, right? But if that's what you believe, then that's what you'll do. But moving in any one of those is going to move you up across the whole of the 8 areas. These are all 8, critical areas.
Right.
Now, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you have a go at it? Did you have any 8s in your list?
I had 1 8. 1 8 and 1 6.
Yeah, so if you move the 6 to a 7, that's still in the passive. But if you move the 8 up, all of a sudden you've moved up your overall, right? Right. Which is going to help. But you want to look at anything that's less than 9. So this is the real question. Anything that's less than 9, because really 9 and 10 is really where you want to be in everything. If it's less than 9, the question I want you to ask yourself is, how do I feel? Or what do I believe about myself with respect to that area of my life? So let's say that your relationships are 7. How do I feel about myself with respect to relationships? Now, you might say, I never attract good people into my life. Everyone that I attract into my life is drama, right? Some people just have a knack for attracting drama. People like that, Brandy? I don't.
I don't either. No.
We have a different name for those people, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So everyone here is wondering, well, what do you call him? What do you call him? We're going to save that one for later. But
yeah, that's for the next training.
But what do I believe about myself with respect? Because the thing that's having you score yourself that number has nothing to do with what's possible, but just a belief. And now what you have to do is you have to start to challenge those beliefs, because those beliefs are actually not your beliefs. Unless you started this conversation with us today already with the awareness, right, that you are infinite potential, and it's your paradigms, your programs, your conditioning that's driving your results, then if you didn't have that awareness, now you got to start to challenge those beliefs. What do you believe about yourself? Because you can change beliefs, right? But it's easier said than done. right? And the only way you're going to
Right.
change a belief, the only way you're going to change a belief is by actually going to starting with the end that you want about. So let's talk about wealth, because wealth is an important one when it comes to network marketing. So maybe you're earning X amount and you want to be earning Y, right? So what is it that you believe about money? What is it that you believe about your worth? Because a lot of it, has to do with your belief of your self-worth. What value can you bring? And then what do you need to believe about money? Okay. Now, Bob Proctor, he always shares the law of compensation. Now, I'll talk about that because that's part of the reason why I do what I do. And it'll be good for you to know this, right? There is a law of compensation that applies to every industry, and network marketing is no different. And the law of compensation says that the amount of money that you earn is always, it's called the law of compensation, right? Law. We already know what law means, right? The amount of money you earn is always in direct proportion with the need for what you do. Number one. Number two, your ability to do it. And number three, the difficulty in replacing you. Now, question that you have to ask yourself, is there a need for what you do in network marketing? What would you say, Brandy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's great products, right? There are great services that companies are providing.
Right.
And there's a huge need worldwide to get these in the hands of people, right?
Yeah, there's great products, and there's also the opportunity for you to help other people make money, right? So,
yeah. Now, did you create that need?
No.
No, it was already there. So you don't have to worry about that. You have no bearing on that. So there's 1 out of 3 you don't have to worry when it comes to the law. But here's the next one. So number one is the need for what you do. Second one is your ability to do it. Now we're getting into, okay, what can I do? And so this is where I love to play, because this is like, how do I help you be better at what you do, right? And so this is where all your effort has to come into it, understanding yourself, because as you understand you and these programs that we're talking about and how to work with this law of consciousness, the law of creation. Now, all that is that if I can imagine a state, if I can imagine an outcome, if I can imagine a circumstance, right, and like a result that I want to manifest, if I can see myself already in that state is manifested, then I can actually attract everything that I need for it to actually show up in the physical plane, right? Because as we always hear, Bob always talks about, as within, always without. So as within our consciousness inside of us, so without, because we're all just a higher expression spiritually of the physical world. Everything starts in the mind and then manifests. Like the table was, we're leaning on, the chairs, everything we see around us, everything was just an idea. So with the law of consciousness, it starts by you seeing yourself already in possession of that goal. But people don't know how to do that. And it's easier said than done. And so it comes down to that cause and effect, right? So another one of the other laws in the science of getting rich is the law of cause and effect. And so cause is in consciousness. Cause is you creating the image. The effect is the manifestation. Cause is sowing the seed. The effect is the sprouting of the seed, right? But by the same law. So your ability to do it is going to come down to challenging your beliefs. What do you believe about money? What do you believe about impact? What do you believe about relationships? What do you believe about your spirituality? What do you believe about your happiness and your health and your personal development? And that's what this is. It's about how do you become better so you can do more and align yourself with the law so that you can produce the outcomes that you do want.
And I think that's one of the main keys is, figuring out how to align yourself with the law that you want to work with. Because if you're not going to align yourself with the law, then you're actually working against the law, which is a lot of the reason most people don't get what they actually want, is because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm building all this business, building, big, and I'm not getting anything. And they focus on the not getting anything. And then guess what you get? More of the not getting, right? Because that's what you're focused on. So aligning yourself with the law is the best piece. So how do people find out how to get more? Because, this is something that you taught me over a matter of, it takes more than, what the time we've got here. How do they learn more? How do they learn to use the law? Where do they start, basically? Yeah.
So, well, because of everything that we talk about, because it's actually simple. Like, it's not complex. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's
Um,
complex, I mean, there's pieces to it, but it's not hard. It's
yeah.
just learning it and then applying it. That's the
Yeah.
piece.
What's hard is that we have to look in the mirror and be honest
Mhm.
with ourselves. That's what's
Yeah.
hard. And sometimes we don't like what we see. Right. And we only don't like what we see because we're looking with our eyes. We're not looking through our eyes. If you were to look through your eyes, not with your eyes, then what you will see is beauty and potential, infinite potential, actually.
Right.
And realize that all you're seeing as far as the result is just, it's never got a cause, it a state that you've occupied. You've just entered into that state.
Mhm.
Now, success is a state. Relationships is like good relationships is a state. Bad relationships is a state, right? These are all states. But you have the choice of what state you occupy and how long you stay there. Like, if you're manifesting right now results that you don't like around financials, like you don't have money, you might say you're not necessarily being poor. Poor is a state, broke is another state. They're two different states. Broke and poor is not the same state. We get that, yeah?
Yeah.
But you might be broke right now, but that's a state, and you're going to stay there until you have the awareness that, oh, I can shift that state from broke to opportunity. And then as you connect yourself mentally with that new state by seeing yourself already on the other side of what that looks like, and you have to, it's not about just seeing yourself, it's about feeling yourself in that state. Like, feeling is the key. And, attraction and vibration, two different laws, right? Vibration is the first law because everything vibrates, and as you feel, then you attract to manifest.
Yeah.
Right?
And in, in the training that you shared with me, way back when, it was the emotion piece that dials that in. Like, it's like that's the emotion piece. So, I want to just point that out because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, well, I see myself, speaking from stage, and, I see myself opening up my bank account and there's all this money there or whatever. But if it's not emotionally connected, you're not aligned with the law. That's the piece that we want to make sure.
And so before I share with you how I can give you more information on this stuff and really, dive into a little bit more, just one thought that comes to mind, which I thought about, like, in Australia, every January we have the Australian Open, which is the tennis tournament, right? Like, in America, I know baseball is big and football is big, and, all these other, hockey is big, right? Basketball is big. So it doesn't matter what sport you follow. Like, if you could just imagine for a moment being in a game and you're sitting on the edge of your seat and your team's going for it, right? And you're like, you just want to be there, right? It's like they're only like a couple of points away from winning. And you're like, just take the 3-pointer, just take the 3-pointer. But imagine if in an instant, all of a sudden you're transported from being on your seat to being in the court. Now, I've seen movies where that happens, where the person's thinking, and then they appear with a racket in their hand, and now they're the one on the tennis court. It's a different game. Like,
oh, absolutely.
The only person that can make the impact is the person that's on the court, not the person that's spectating. And sometimes we do spend our lives like spectating. So to work with this law of consciousness, this little known law, the key is to not be a spectator, but you have to be a participant. Right? I call it the best way that I explain that is going from, first person to third person to first person. Like my kids playing Mario Wii, you could see the car in front of you where the person's driving the car, or you can be the person that sees the road in front of you.
You can do the view where it's just the road and you're in the car, right? Like, yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah, so like in your case, Brandy, when you've been speaking on stage, like if you were to think back about being on stage, do you see yourself walking up and down, or do you see yourself looking at the audience?
Yeah, well, I see myself looking at the audience now, but when I first started practicing aligning with the law, I was seeing myself on the stage, and we talked about this the other night.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when because you're seeing, it's actually like you feel like there's two of you, one on the stage and you're looking at the other person, like, so. But yeah, you need to be seeing the audience and their reactions.
Yeah, and even better than that, because this is not easy for me. Like, I imagine every night, but this is the challenge, and this is so we'll talk about the webinar, but in the webinar, I actually go into more detail, right? That's going to be the key for you to actually see yourself as the participant, not as the spectator, right? Like I know in some other programs where they teach you, like you go to the movies, they say you're in a cinema and you're watching yourself on the screen. That's no good.
Yeah.
You don't want to be watching yourself on the screen. You want to be the actor on the screen, right? Looking at the people, right? Looking at the cameras or whatever you're doing, because now you're in that end state where you want to operate from. And it's not just imagination of you in that state, it's the feeling of that state.
That's a big piece of it. You have to have that feeling with the emotion, it just is.
So if you were crossing the stage, for example, you can have an image because you've seen it 1,000 times. If you've been in network marketing for a while, people crossing the stage, they walk up and they shake hands, they get the little present, and they might, depending on how much they're being recognized for, they might even give a little speech. And you can see yourself being that person you see yourself walking the stage. That's not what you want. What you want to maybe even is go beyond that, where you're already sitting down with your group, and they're all actually high-fiving you, and they're hugging you, and there's tears in your face, and might be tears in their eyes, because you know that the only reason you're there is because you made impact in someone else's life. And now you're present to all the feelings. Now, you've already been on stage, and you're conscious of that in your mind's eye when you're sitting with your friends. You've already been on stage, you've already been presented, and you're past the outcome. But all the feelings there. What are your friends saying to you? How are they relating to you, your colleagues, your partners, your family, all that sort of stuff? That's the key. And it's not easy to do.
It does take practice, right? Totally takes practice. So
yeah, and you might have to start small. You might have to start by just imagining yourself holding a tennis ball in your hand.
Right.
Now, don't see yourself with the tennis ball. Look at the tennis ball. Feel the texture of the tennis ball, and then change it for maybe a golf ball or maybe a baseball, and just feel the ball in your hand. So start practicing with little exercises like that, where you start to see yourself, like you want to get familiar with being in the first person inside of your imagination. And then you can start to translate that to your goals. Now,
yeah, and I have an example of that makes total sense, because my husband and I were looking at, kind of where we want to go on our next vacation. And there's this, I don't remember where it is. We were just looking at it. We found it on Pinterest, but there's this big treehouse place, like it's like in this rainforest, right? And it's got this at the top of the tree, they've built this great big round couch thing. And on the picture, you see the two, the couple holding hands, like looking out at the forest, right? On top of this big thing. And like, that just was a light bulb for me, that when I'm looking at that picture, I'm looking at me and Nate doing that same thing. But what I should be seeing is the rainforest, right? Not me and Nate. So it's such an incredible, it's so crazy how the mind works and all of these laws. It's like so fascinating that, and they work, right? They totally work.
Yeah. I might just quickly read you, like there's a bit of a joke going on with my son now, because Neville Goddard, when he was about, I think he was about 28, it was 1933, where he started to get present to these ideas, right? About the using your imagination to project yourself into a state. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so what happened was he wanted to go to Barbados because he's from Barbados, right? He'd gone from Barbados to New York. He was a dancer. The depression was on. No one was hiring dancers. He didn't have an equal. He was broke ass, and he wanted to spend Christmas with his family, right? And so he said to his mentor, Abdullah, who's an Ethiopian guy that he was living with, he wanted to go. And this is what, all he asked was one question: what do you want? And this is the question you'll always hear me ask. It's a question you always hear Bob Proctor ask. Now, what do you think? It's the only question that we ask.
I don't think you can move forward until you know what you want with anything.
Number one, but that's really important. But secondly, it's the only thing you need to know, because most people are getting caught up in the, but how do I get what I want? See, that's not your problem.
No.
Right. So this is really big. If you like, you might miss this, right? If you just go, oh yeah, man, like you might miss it. All you have to know is what you want, but what you want is not what you tell other people you want.
No.
What you want is when you're in your heart of hearts, when the doors are closed, when you're in your closet and you know what you want. That's what you got to be present to. What do you want? Right. And so that was the thing. And this is what he said. I'm quoting out of the book now, right? He said that if you'll imagine yourself to be in Barbados, said he, thinking and viewing the world from that state of consciousness instead of thinking of Barbados. So don't think of Barbados, think that you're already there, right? You'll spend the winter there. You must not concern yourself with the ways and means of getting there. For the state of consciousness of already being in Barbados, if occupied by your imagination, will devise the means best suited to realize itself.
It's almost like he's saying, like, you figure out what you want, and don't worry about the how. Like the how,
Correct.
it will figure itself out. And I remember you teaching me this, years ago, like I talk about, you're like, Brandy, just figure out what you want, because there's so many options, right? So many things, and just figure out what you want. It's none of your business the how.
That's right.
Just figuring out what you want.
And that's part of the reason why so many people don't achieve their goals, because they're trying to set what they want based on what they think they can get.
Mm-hmm.
See, what you want is not what you think you can get. What you want is not what you've had before. What you want is what is the idea that becomes an ideal that you fall in love with, that you want to spend the rest of your life doing. That's the want. That's what you don't, tell people that you want. That's, that desire, which is actually a gift from God placed in you. And the fact that you desire it, think about what you desire. The fact that you desire it is the confirmation that you have within you what it takes to manifest that goal, that desire. Why do I know that? Because, Brandy, I don't desire to be a brain surgeon.
No.
If I did, I would be willing to do the work to be a brain surgeon. All I desired was to teach this stuff, right? To be a student of it for the rest of my life, to teach it and to see people wake up to their potential and transform.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that transformation, manifest outcomes consistent with that transformation. And that could be financial, that could be relationships, that could be happiness, that could be health, that could be any one of those 8 different areas that we talked about before, right? So that's how the story went. And what would happen is, as he started getting closer to the date of Christmas, and because in those days it was just steamships that used to travel, they weren't flying. So he's like, it's not happening. He goes, you're not going to Barbados. You've been to Barbados.
You've already been to Barbados.
Yeah. And so what he did was he began sleeping in his father's house mentally every night in his imagination. And so from where he was lying down, he was imagining New York on the other side of the world. So he in using perspective, which is which is perception, which is a mental faculty, he could actually relate to where he was from a different point of view. He was actually there, and he was using his senses now inside of his imagination to see, to hear the smells of his mother's cooking. Right? He was there. He wasn't thinking of Barbados. He was thinking from. And therefore, New York was in a different place. And so he kept on saying to him, you're not going to Barbados, you've been to Barbados. And I think it was about 9 days after, sure enough, a ticket came from his brother, they were a very wealthy family now at that stage, inviting him to go to Barbados. And he spent,
I love that. That's great. And those of you that are listening or, are watching this episode, how many of you have manifested something in your life using, some laws? Because you can do it. I have friends that do it. I have friends that we talk about it. And at first you might, if you're watching this, you might think this is a little woo-woo, right? Like one of those woo-woo things. But I promise you can start really small with manifesting something small, and it's crazy what will happen. But yeah, so Fernando, tell us how they learn more on how to do this, because we've been on now for like 50 minutes. So I want to make sure that you get, people can get their info on how to learn how to do this.
Yeah, so I've created a webinar, which is a free webinar that you can go and listen to, that actually are going to 3 secrets. And really the title of the webinar is how to manifest any goal you want working with the law of consciousness, which you now understand a little bit more about. Now, of course, we can't, we could spend hours, days, there's whole seminars about this sort of stuff. But in that webinar, I actually go into the 3 secrets. One is the law of consciousness. Then I also go into the secret door behind which all goals are manifested. So there is a door. And when you understand what happens behind that door between the conscious and the subconscious and how they come together in perfect, unity to produce results that you want, it's a beautiful thing. It's actually really exciting to understand. And then also we talk about, the rituals that you need to go through to make sure you don't self-sabotage, because that's a big thing about manifesting goals. We're always self-sabotaging because of those old programs that we have come out to play all the time. So I created the webinar. So I think that I've given you the link, Brandy.
I dropped it for everybody. I put it in the chat. Let me see if I can't click it. How come I can't click it? Maybe it's because it's on here.
That's all right. Just put it down. Yeah, just leave it in the chat. People can click on that.
Yeah, it's in the chat. So it's in the chat. You can grab it. It's bit.ly/Brandy Shaver webinar go. So you'll be able to grab it there.
Yeah. So what I've done in that webinar, so the webinar, covers all those 3 secrets, but for anybody, like, as you know, I've coached network marketers, so I understand attraction marketing. I've created a lot of systems. I've created some resources and scripts that I remember you started using to attract people into your network marketing business. You gave it 9 days and you got 9 people in.
I know, it was so crazy like this. And I used to think this stuff was woo-woo. In fact, I'll just hurry and tell you the story so you can understand how woo-woo I thought it was. Fernando said, "Hey, Brandy, let's test out this script." He's like, "I've got this script. I've been using it on students. It's working. We can modify it to enroll people into your team." And I'm like, "Fernando, come on, like scripts, like that's like amateur stuff, right? People that are amateurs use scripts." And these were my programmings that I had to work through. And he said, "Okay, just use it. It's great. Just test it. See what it does." I'm like, "All right, Fernando." And because I'm a person of my word, I gave it a go, used it for 9 days, and I seriously enrolled 9 people. And I had to eat crow. I had to come back and tell Fernando how amazing he was, and his script was amazing, and how much that it helped me become a person of, servant leadership for other people using the script. It's awesome. So.
Yeah, and it works all the time. It's like law, right? It works all the time, every time, exactly the same way.
It is. It's like the script law. That's what we need to call it.
It draws the emotions that you want in people. So what I decided to do is, for anybody that watches the webinar right to the end, I'm going to have it that they can click on it, and I'm going to give away, not the framework, because I normally give away the framework for about $2, but then people need to buy the script. So if you're here and you're watching these, and the reason I'm doing it is because I understand that transformation is really important, right? But so is duplication, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem is most people have the duplication, the knowledge of the how, they're missing the transformation. But you might already have some of the duplication, but I want to give you something else as an incentive for you to go and start using this stuff. So as you work on yourself and your transformation, then having the script is going to make sense, because you're going to be able to execute on it, right? So there's a value to that. Like, normally I charge people $197 just to get on a call with me to go through the script together. You can have it for free. It doesn't cost you anything to watch the webinar. And the challenge when you give away stuff for free is people put little or no value to it. But I'm going to just trust that you are going to do something with it. So watch the webinar to the end. You'll see a link. There's actually 2 things that I'll give away for those that stay to the end. One's the confidence formula, which is really powerful. That's about you. And then also I'm going to add for you guys here the actual verbatim, the word for word of the same script that Brandy has used to enroll 6-figure earners and 9 people in 9 days, and people are still using it today all over the world to enroll people without being salesy, without being weird, all that sort of stuff, just for watching. But you're going to learn a lot in that webinar. Now, at the end of the webinar, you're also going to learn, just for full disclosure, transparency, how you can work more closely with me, where we can actually go together for 12 weeks and sharing these principles, really dive in step by step on how to bridge the knowing doing gap, how to transform your paradigms, working with this law of consciousness, how to identify the higher faculties of your mind. And I have a whole heap of other bonuses there for those that may be a fit. Now, it's not for everybody. It is by application. So you will have to book a time with me, but then complete an application form, because I want to know that I'm working with people that are ready. And not everybody's ready, and that's okay.
Right.
We're all on a journey. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I highly recommend, going through that masterclass that Fernando has built. It is incredible. You'll get some incredible insights out of it, and you'll understand how your lizard brain is actually controlling a lot of what you're doing, and the reason the knowing and doing gap. And then, just watching that gets the script. I'd watch it just for the script if it was me, but yeah.
Yeah. And you might get something along the way.
Yeah, you might get something out of it along the way. What's really cool is if you pay attention to the training, you'll know how to use the script to manifest what you're looking for. So anyway, Fernando, anything else you want to share?
No, I was going to say, those $2 million that I sold, look, this was education that we sold using how I actually, use that script. It is just very, very powerful. It'll serve you well. And as you listen to the webinar, don't listen so much about what I'm saying, but what it means to you, because that's where you're going to get the most value. Always you should be listening from, what does that mean to me? Reserve any judgment about what you think you know or may not know, and just come from nothing pretend like you're just, you know, a newborn, just trying to learn, forget all your
Mhm.
programs, you know, suspend all your, you know, previous beliefs about anything and just have an open mind and just see where that takes you. Because it may be the difference between, you know, having those sevens become nines and tens in
Right.
those 8 areas of your life, right? And if it does that for at least one of them, now you're moving your overall results where you want to go.
Right. Cool. Well, Fernando, thanks for being on. I so appreciate you always willing to share so much value with my followers, with my listeners. I appreciate it so much. And
My
guys,
pleasure,
thanks
Brandy.
for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.